In this video, I'm going to show you what a full stack application looks like. From the tech stack to the good principles, I'm going to show you everything I did in real time. So there are three main aspects to all full stack apps: the front end, the back end, and the communication between both. And you can kind of think of it like a restaurant. You can think of the front end as the restaurant where users will come in, look at the menu, and order, while on the other hand, the backend is the chefs and the cooks that do stuff when the user or customer orders. And finally, we have the waiter who takes the customer's order and then gives it to the chefs or the back end. I hope that made sense. And if we head over to the screen, we can see a real life example of what this could look like. And simply put, the front end is anything that the user can see and interact with. And so a great example of this would be the registration form. The user looks at this, sees, okay, I can put my name, my email, and my password. I know I have to do that. Let's just think of it as the looks of the website. And while the front end is what the user sees, the back end is where the real magic happens for the application. Things such as authentication, managing and storing user data. These are all important tasks that happen in the back end. And so a great example of the application of how we authenticated the user, we simply created a user model in our Prisma database, which we'll go over the tech stack in a bit. And we're simply creating a way to store their name, email, password, images, and like account, so that when the user does input the items, we have a way of storing that data. So as you can see here, we have the user's name that I inputted before, my email, and like a user ID given by the database. And if you go to the real-time database that I'm using, you can see that the user has a name, an email, and all the aspects that we created here. For example, right here, we have the ID, name, email verified, ID, name, email verified. So right now you're probably saying, okay, Nizar, we have the front end, we have the back end. How do these two things communicate with each other, right? And that is where the third process of our full stack app comes in, which is the APIs. APIs, or application programming interface, is simply a way for two computers or different parts of an application to talk with each other. When we are putting in the name, email, and password for our registration form, we have to have a process for it to go from the front end to the back end. And that is why in our example, right, we have the waiter who does that communication for us in the restaurant. So let's say we have the login form here. Here's all the code for it. We simply created a way to track the email and password. So here we're basically getting the email and password from the login schema, which we have here. And we're basically just grabbing the email and password, storing it in the database, and creating a user. Another example of how we would use APIs for the front end and back end to talk to each other is, let's say we wanted to create a course. We can call it JavaScript 101. And here we have a form where we want to describe the course and create the sales page and the price and chapters. And again, like talked about earlier, here is all the front end, and we are hoping to store all the data here and the back end so the user can see everything. So let's say we wanted to describe the course. Here we have the code to describe the course, so things such as like the name and a way to input stuff in here. As you can see here, we have a form, intro to web development, okay? And we get a message saying that it was updated. And basically, okay, like we did in the registration form, we are taking that data and then using APIs to post that in the database. So for example, in my model course, which is what every course will have, I have an ID, user ID, title, description, etc., etc. As you can see here, we have a description, like talked about earlier, where we're going to store the description of the course. And if we go back to our API, this is the API. And essentially here, we're getting the ID of the course that we are using. So for example, right here, the JavaScript 101 course that we created has this ID given to it when we created it. And so here in the API, we're simply calling the specific ID that we are following, and we are telling the backend and the API to listen to the ID of the course, and whenever the user does stuff, update that field. And because we created the description form with an easy way to track what is going on in the description form, we are easily able to track everything. So let's say we have a price for the course, right? Let's say it's $50 for the course. The API sends that $50 to the back end through this. So we're simply waiting for the data from the front end and we're storing it in the back end. And if we go to Prisma and once we refresh the database, we can go over here and we can see that the price is $50. So again, I'm sorry I'm going into really deep detail. I just want you to understand this as much as possible. We have the front end, which is what the user user sees and what you can see on the screen. We have the backend where we're storing the data from the user. So like we're creating a course, we want to store videos from the course. And a way for the front end and the back end to communicate with each other is through an API, where when the user logs in, we want to take the name, email, and password and do stuff with that. So one more example here. Let's say we wanted to delete the course. As you can see on the screen here, we created a way for us to delete the course. We're basically grabbing the course model from our database, which is this, and we're simply deleting the course ID, which is like the main aspect of the course. And once we delete this, we get a thing saying it deleted. And if we refresh this page, this should be gone. And so the last thing I wanted to cover, and maybe something you've been waiting for, is like the tech stack that I've been using for the full stack app. The languages that I have used to build out this full stack application is in the front end, Next.js, which is a React framework using TypeScript, and Tailwind CSS. And on the back end, I'm using Prisma DB. Now, Next.js is a React framework that has a bunch of things. It's basically a bunch of languages in of its own. It has things such as server-side rendering, custom routing. There's a bunch of things that make building full stack applications easier, while Tailwind allows me to design things pretty easy. So if we go back here, you can see how I'm designing everything in the class name. That's Tailwind. And then finally, we have Prisma. Not really a database, it's more of an ORM, which stands for Object Relational Model. It's a little bit different than a regular backend, but don't worry about it too much. And basically here, we're just creating the database. And what I love about Prisma is that it makes it really easy to communicate using APIs. All we have to do is get the database and then use it in our app. It was super easy. But yeah, that's all. Next.js using TypeScript, Tailwind CSS for like designing things, and finally Prisma for the backend. I hope I clarified some things, and I hope it wasn't really too confusing. I know that these concepts are a little difficult to understand and grasp at times, but we did well. And by the way, if you want to join the Discord community where we have absolutely the best freaking group in the world, we're at like almost 600 people, which is insane, where we have things such as hackathons that we're doing soon, job opportunities, business opportunities for people that want to start businesses together, and open source projects. And even if you're new, I think you would really benefit from this because there are a lot of new developers that are improving, so you guys can like help each other out. And also, I will leave the web developer roadmap in the description below. And yeah, good luck, happy coding, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.